50,000 years ago humanity was gone. Not destroyed, not vanished into dust, but simply absent. The stars remembered their ships, the ruins of old colonies carried their marks, and alien records spoke of their fire. Yet no one saw a human for ages, not even a trace of their living kind. Time turned them into legend. In the halls of alien power humans became a myth told to children. Some said they were monsters who burned worlds for pride. Some said they were heroes who fought and died to protect weaker races. But most believed they were extinct, erased by history and forgotten by time. The galaxy moved on without them. Civilizations rose and fell. Empires spread and broke into dust. Trade routes shifted across the stars. New races claimed dominance. The Galactic Council became the heart of power, a meeting place where hundreds of species argued, traded, and decided the fate of systems. And in all those long ages there was no voice of man, no sign of Earth, no ship under a human flag. Aliens mocked the old stories. How could one species have been so dangerous? It made no sense. They were gone, and the galaxy was better without them. That was what most believed. Until the signals began. On the edge of the Orion Arm strange readings appeared. At first they were faint. A pulse of energy here, a shadow on scanners there. Merchant ships ignored them. Patrol fleets thought it was natural space noise. But then the signals grew stronger. They were structured, repeating, like coded messages hidden in the stars. Scouts reported flashes of light in empty regions. Artificial light, too straight, too perfect to be natural. The council grew uneasy. Something was moving beyond the rim, something organized, something vast. And then came the first sighting. A mining ship, crewed by 4 alien workers, returned from a quiet system near the void. They had seen a shape. It was massive, dark as night, moving without sound. It passed across the stars like a shadow swallowing light. The crew swore it was no natural rock, no drifting wreck. It was a ship. A ship of design they could not match to any living race. The ship did not attack. It did not answer signals. It only drifted past, its lights burning faint blue, its hull marked with symbols none could read. The miners were shaken. Their report was taken as a tale of fear until other ships saw more. Convoys spoke of fleets in the dark. Huge vessels with perfect formation, gliding silently as if they had no need for engines. Rumors spread fast. The old fear returned. A word began to whisper across alien markets, across council chambers, across hidden corners of the galaxy. Humans. The legends of old. The destroyers and saviors. The ghosts of history. Were they back? No one could say for sure. But the stories grew each day. One merchant captain described a close encounter. He said his ship drifted into a field of strange beacons. The beacons scanned his vessel without warning. His systems froze for a moment, then released unharmed. When power returned, a message burned across his screens. Only 2 words. Humanity returns. His crew begged him to erase it. They feared being hunted for even seeing it. But the captain told his story, and it spread like fire. The council finally took action. They sent probes, fleets, and agents to confirm. 4 months they searched, chasing ghost signals, scanning deep space. At first they found nothing. Some believed the stories were tricks by pirates or rebels. But then, on the silent rim near the Forgotten Stars, a council frigate saw them. It began as a shadow across the horizon, then multiplied into dozens, then hundreds. A formation of ships so large it blocked the stars. The frigate captain recorded every detail. The ships were black as stone, smooth, with strange angles that hurt the eye. They moved in complete silence, but every scanner screamed with unreadable energy. The captain tried to speak with them. No answer. He fired a warning shot. The human ships stopped. And then they moved as one, turning toward him in perfect harmony, without hesitation, without fear. The captain fled. His log described the final image, A fleet larger than anything the council had ever seen, stretching across the void like a wall of night. That log reached the council chamber. And silence fell. The oldest alien lords, who still remembered fragments of the human wars, trembled in their seats. One spoke a single line, "They are back." Panic spread quickly. Civilizations remembered the warnings of their ancestors. Stories of humans winning against impossible odds. Stories of humans adapting faster than any race. Stories of humans who never gave up, no matter the cost. Some believed they were coming for revenge. Others thought they would conquer and enslave. A few dared to hope they had returned as allies. But none could ignore the truth. After 50,000 years of silence, humanity had returned. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The council chamber was the largest hall in the galaxy. It floated inside a hollowed moon, a place where gravity and air were carefully balanced, where thousands of voices could speak and be heard. There, under the glowing light of the central core, the leaders of hundreds of alien races gathered. It was a meeting of fear. News of the human fleet had spread too fast. Too many witnesses, too many logs, too many signals. No one could deny it now. The humans were back. The chamber shook with noise. Some shouted for war. Others begged for peace. The air was thick with fear and confusion. The High Speaker, a tall insectoid creature with crystal eyes, struck the floor with her staff. The sound echoed, silencing the crowd. "Order," she demanded. "We must face this with reason, not panic." But reason was hard to find. An aquatic envoy bubbled in its water tank, voice trembling through the translator. "If the stories are true, they will burn our worlds as they did before. We cannot wait. We must strike first, before their fleet grows." Across the chamber, a scaled warlord slammed his claws on the table. "Fool. Strike first and we all die. Do you not remember? They fought empires far stronger than yours. They cannot be crushed so easily." A feathered scholar raised his thin wings. His voice was soft, but it carried weight. "Perhaps they do not come for war. Perhaps they return only to live again among the stars." His words were met with laughter, bitter and sharp. An iron-skinned general hissed, "You speak of dreams. Humans do not return without purpose. They vanished for 50,000 years. You think they woke only to plant gardens." The arguments twisted into chaos. Every race spoke its fear. Some remembered humans as conquerors, others as saviors, but none trusted them fully. The chamber became a storm of voices, the sound of fear wearing different masks. In the shadows of the upper seats, an ancient being listened. His body was fragile, but his mind held centuries. He was the archivist, keeper of the oldest records of the galaxy. Slowly, he rose. The chamber quieted, for even the youngest envoys knew to respect his voice. "You argue like children," he said. "You forget what the humans are. They are not demons, not saints. They are something far more dangerous." The chamber leaned closer. "They are survivors. When others fall, they rise. When others break, they endure. No war erased them. No time erased them. And now they return with power none of us understand. If you fight them, you will bleed. If you trust them, you may also bleed. But one thing is certain. The galaxy will change, whether you wish it or not." His words sank deep. Silence returned, heavy and long. Then the High Speaker spoke again. "The Council must decide. Shall we prepare for welcome, or prepare for war?" Her words lit the chamber on fire again. Delegates shouted. Some called for fleets to gather, others demanded embassies be sent. Fear split the chamber into two sides. On one side stood those who believed in defense, armies, weapons, shields. On the other side stood those who prayed for diplomacy, talk, peace, treaties. Between them hung the fate of the galaxy. A young envoy from a small desert world dared to speak. His people had no fleets, no armies. Yet his voice carried courage. If we prepare for war, we invite war. If we prepare for peace, we invite peace. Which path do you want for your children? His words made some pause, but the warlords roared against him. You are naive. Peace cannot stop fire. The humans must be crushed before they grow too bold. The council chamber became a battlefield of words. Hours passed. No decision was made. But then something happened. A message arrived. It was not sent through normal channels. It appeared directly on the central display, cutting through every screen, every translator, every defense. The chamber froze as the message played. A human voice, calm and steady, spoke in perfect galactic standard. We know you fear us. We know you wonder why we have returned. Watch, and you will understand. The display shifted. A starfield appeared, then moved to show a planet on the edge of the rim. The planet was barren, lifeless. Suddenly, the human fleet appeared above it. In perfect silence, the ships released a wave of energy. The barren world lit with fire, its surface reshaped in moments. Oceans formed, air thickened, plants grew at impossible speed. In the span of minutes, the dead world became alive. The display ended. The human voice spoke again. We return not for conquest, but for purpose. We ask you to wait. We will speak soon. The message vanished. The chamber sat in stunned silence. The envoys looked at one another, some in shock, some in awe. A dead world turned to life. No race had such power. Not the council, not the great empires. Only the humans. The silence broke. It is a trick, a lizard-like general growled. They hide weapons behind kindness. That planet will become their fortress. But others whispered in wonder. They bring life. They can heal what is broken. The council was divided more than ever. Some demanded to reach out, to speak, to welcome. Others screamed for war, for preparation, for fear. The High Speaker saw the division, and she knew the truth. The galaxy stood at the edge of a great storm. No matter what choice they made, nothing would ever return to how it was. She struck her staff once more. Enough. The council will meet again when the humans speak. Until then, guard your borders. And pray your choice is the right one. The chamber emptied slowly. Delegates left in silence, carrying heavy thoughts. Outside, across the stars, rumors grew stronger. Some citizens cheered for the return of the humans, dreaming of golden days. Others built bunkers, fearing the end of their worlds. Fleets began to move quietly, supplies gathered, armies trained. The galaxy was holding its breath, waiting. And far beyond, in the endless dark, the human fleet moved silently forward, closer and closer to the heart of council space. The galaxy waited, and then the moment came. At the edge of council space, a human fleet appeared near the silent star of Vera 9. The system was empty, abandoned long ago after its sun dimmed. Yet now the dark star burned with the glow of hundreds of alien ships gathering nearby. The council had chosen to act. They had sent a scout fleet, not large enough for war, but strong enough to test the humans. The fleet commander was Admiral Krell of the Tarkon Empire, a warrior known for his cold judgment. He believed the humans were dangerous, but he also believed fear made fools of leaders. His task was simple: make contact, judge the humans, and report back. Krell's fleet waited in formation. The human ships drifted in the distance, silent and unmoving. They looked like shadows carved from the void, black hulls with faint blue lights that pulsed like slow heartbeats. No signal came from them. No greeting, no threat. They only watched. Hours passed. Tension grew heavy. Krell finally gave the order. Send the message. A small probe was launched. It carried the council's greeting in every known language, a call for peace, and a request for dialogue. The probe crossed the space between fleets and vanished into the black line of human ships. For a long time nothing happened. Krell stared at the dark vessels, his claws tapping the arm of his command chair. His officers whispered. Some thought the humans would ignore them. Some thought they would strike without warning. But then the silence broke. A voice filled every channel, every screen, every translator. The language was perfect galactic standard, smooth, calm, without accent or error. "We hear you." The words froze the fleet. Krell leaned forward. "This is Admiral Krell, commander of the Council fleet. We seek to know your purpose. Why have you returned after 50,000 years?" The voice answered without pause. "Humanity has returned because the galaxy is not ready for what is coming." The words sent shivers through the crew. Krell demanded, "What do you mean? What threat?" The voice did not explain. It only said, "We will speak soon. You must wait." The transmission ended. The human ships remained silent once more. Krell growled in frustration. He ordered his fleet to scan the humans in detail. Energy readings, weapon strength, shield data, everything. Probes and scanners reached out. And then, without firing a shot, the human fleet responded. The alien ships went dark. Engines died, weapons shut down, sensors went blind. Krell's fleet drifted powerless, caught in silence. Panic filled the decks. Officers shouted as they struggled to restore control. Krell stood frozen as the realization struck him. The humans had disabled an entire fleet with a single silent command. Seconds felt like hours. And then, just as suddenly, power returned. The systems flickered back to life. Engines roared, shields flared, weapons blinked alive. No ships were destroyed, no lives lost. Only a single message appeared on every screen. "Do not test us again." Krell's breath shook in his chest. His officers stared at him, waiting for orders. But what could he do? His fleet was at their mercy, and they had chosen not to destroy. He gave the order to retreat. "We have seen enough," he said, his voice hard but shaken. The fleet turned away, leaving the humans in silence once more. The report of Admiral Krell reached the Council within hours. The chamber fell into uproar. Some saw the humans as tyrants, flaunting power to terrify the galaxy. Others saw restraint, a warning without bloodshed, a chance to talk rather than fight. The Council split deeper. But across the galaxy, people whispered about the encounter. Ordinary citizens asked questions. If humans had such power, why did they not attack? Why did they warn instead of kill? What did they mean by "what is coming"? Fear and curiosity spread together. Meanwhile, in secret corners of space, smaller races debated what to do. Some sent quiet envoys to search for the humans. Others began building hidden weapons, preparing for the worst. The galaxy felt the pressure of a storm that had not yet broken. Far from the Council's reach, in the silence of their fleet, the humans moved again. They glided deeper into known space, never firing, never speaking. Their ships seemed endless, more than anyone had counted. The shadows of their fleet stretched across the stars. Inside those ships, human commanders watched carefully. They spoke little, but their eyes carried centuries of experience, and their voices carried one shared truth: they had returned not for conquest, but because time was running out. One of them, a woman with silver eyes, whispered to her crew, "The Council does not understand. They still think in terms of war and peace. But soon they will see the real enemy. And they will have no choice but to stand with us." Back in the Council chamber, the High Speaker felt the weight of every decision pressing upon her. She remembered the words of the Archivist: "Humans are survivors. Survivors always have a reason." But what was that reason? Were they saviors, or were they the storm itself? The question echoed in every heart, and no one had an answer yet. The question spread across the galaxy like fire. Where had humanity been for 50,000 years? Every alien mind demanded the answer, yet the humans gave none. They appeared, they showed power, they spoke only in riddles. Their silence created more fear than war. In the great halls of the Council, scholars pored through ancient records. They searched forgotten archives, broken data cores, and ruins on dead worlds. Everywhere they found the same pattern. Humanity had not vanished in defeat. They had left. The last record showed fleets leaving one by one, not fleeing, not running, but moving with purpose. Some ancient logs spoke of a great council of humans deciding their fate. Others mentioned something beyond the galaxy, something that called to them. But none gave the reason in full. It was as if humans had erased their own trail. Alien historians argued for days. Some said humanity had destroyed itself in secret, building weapons that consumed their own kind. Others believed they had found godhood, rising to a higher state of existence. The most fearful theory was whispered in shadows, that they had been fighting something beyond the stars, something too terrible to name. The mystery grew darker when evidence appeared. On a frozen moon in the Draxus system, explorers uncovered an ancient human station buried under ice. Its systems were dead, but fragments of data survived. The messages were broken, scattered, but one phrase repeated again and again. "It is coming." No one knew what the message meant. But the words chilled those who read them. It gave fuel to the theory that humans had left to face an enemy beyond the edge of the galaxy. If true, then the question became even worse. Had they won? Or had they only delayed the enemy? Across the stars, rumors twisted into wild tales. Merchants told stories of ghost fleets drifting in the void. Smugglers claimed to have seen human soldiers with eyes of fire, who spoke of wars in other galaxies. Farmers on remote colonies whispered that humanity had returned not as saviors, but as carriers of doom, bringing with them the shadow of their great enemy. Fear was growing faster than truth. The council demanded answers. They sent more envoys, brave ambassadors who risked everything to face the humans. Some never returned. Those who did came back shaken, speaking of eyes that looked too old, of voices that spoke without emotion, of silence that felt heavier than words. One envoy swore the human commander told him only this: "We do not explain ourselves to children." The insult burned the council's pride, but it also revealed something deeper. Humanity saw the galaxy as weak, unready, small compared to the things they had faced. And that thought alone terrified them all. Among the races of the council, secret divisions formed. Some leaders began to argue that humanity should be ignored until they chose to explain. Others planned in silence, building fleets and weapons, preparing for the possibility of war. But some, very few, dreamed of alliance. A small desert envoy spoke again before the chamber. "If they faced something for 50,000 years and lived, then perhaps we need them. Perhaps they are the only ones who know the truth." He was laughed at, dismissed as a fool, but his words stayed in the minds of many. Beyond the chamber, normal citizens felt the weight of fear. On crowded markets, voices whispered. In schools, children asked questions their teachers could not answer. Where were the humans? Why did they leave? Why did they return? In some places, small cults began to rise, worshipping humanity as gods. They spoke of humans as saviors who had conquered death, who had walked beyond the galaxy and returned with secrets of life. The council tried to crush these cults, but new ones appeared every day. Humanity had become more than a people. They had become a mystery too powerful to control. Meanwhile, in the silence of their fleet, humans watched. Inside the black ships, commanders studied the council's reactions. They spoke little, but their words carried the weight of history. One captain told her crew, "They do not yet understand. They cannot. If they knew the truth, they would break." Another answered, "They will have to know. Soon. The enemy moves closer." Their voices were calm, but their eyes showed the cost of long war. They carried memories of battles fought in places no alien had seen, against forces no alien could imagine. And still, they said nothing to the galaxy. Only silence, only shadows, only hints of a truth too large to share. Then, another sign appeared. A council research ship exploring the void found a trail. A chain of old human beacons, dead but still holding fragments of data, stretched into the darkness beyond the rim. The beacons told a story. They showed records of fleets moving far from the galaxy, of battles fought in the deep void, of enemies that did not look like anything known. The images were blurred, damaged by time, but the shapes were monstrous. Vast beings of shadow and light, tearing through human lines, consuming stars themselves. The last beacon ended with a broken recording of a human voice, barely audible. "We hold them back. Do not follow. Survive." The council panicked. If these records were true, then humanity had not simply wandered into exile. They had fought. They had fought an enemy that could consume stars. They had fought for 50,000 years. And now they were back. The question became darker. Why now? Had they defeated the enemy, or had the enemy followed them home? In the chamber of the council, the archivist spoke again. His ancient voice carried heavy weight. "Do you not see? Humanity does not answer because the answer is too large. They left to fight. They survived. And now they return because the enemy moves again." His words shook the chamber. Some called him a liar, others begged him for proof. But in their hearts, many felt the truth. The humans had faced something none of them could face. And the silence of humans was not pride. It was warning. Across the galaxy, every race watched the stars with new fear. They waited for a sign, for the humans to finally reveal the truth. But the humans stayed silent, moving deeper into known space, closer to the heart of the council. The mystery of their absence grew heavier. And in the silence, the question burned brighter than ever. Where had humanity been for 50,000 years? And what followed them back into the galaxy? The council's debates grew longer and louder, but the humans remained silent. Every day their fleet drifted deeper into known space, their black ships casting shadows over the stars. The galaxy waited for a sign, for a message, for any clear answer. And then it happened. The first strike came not from the humans, but from those who feared them most. The Zorith Dominion, a proud warrior race with thousands of battle fleets, decided that waiting was weakness. Their leaders declared humanity a threat that must be destroyed before it grew too strong. Without warning, they launched an attack. Hundreds of Zorith warships entered the Vera system, where a portion of the human fleet drifted in silence. Their commanders believed surprise would give them victory. They armed their weapons, shields blazing, ready to crush the humans in one overwhelming strike. The council had not approved this assault, but the Zorith cared little for politics. They wanted proof of their strength, proof that the old legends of humanity were nothing but lies. Admiral Korvek of the Zorith fleet sent a single broadcast before the battle began. His voice was filled with pride. "We do not bow to ghosts. Today, the humans will learn who rules the stars." His fleet moved forward in perfect attack formation. Thousands of missiles and energy beams fired across the void, filling space with burning light. The human ships did not move. They stood in silence, letting the storm of fire crash against them. For a moment it seemed the Zorith attack had succeeded. The galaxy held its breath. But then the truth was revealed. As the light cleared, the human fleet was untouched. The missiles had vanished before reaching their hulls, dissolving into sparks. The energy beams had bent away as if space itself had refused to let them strike. The humans had not fired a single shot, and yet the greatest fleet of the Zorith Dominion had achieved nothing. Confusion spread across the Zorith ships. Admiral Korvek shouted orders, demanding another wave. More weapons fired, more power unleashed. Again the humans stood untouched. And then, for the first time, the humans responded. Without a single weapon blast, without a missile or laser, the Zorith ships began to fall apart. Systems shut down. Engines froze. Weapons refused to fire. Shields collapsed like broken glass. Entire warships drifted powerless, their crews shouting in fear as alarms screamed. One by one, the Zorith fleet was silenced. Not destroyed, but completely helpless. The humans had taken control of every ship with invisible precision. Across the council, feeds of the battle spread in secret channels. Millions watched as the proud Zorith Dominion was humiliated without a single human shot. The legend of humanity became truth once more. At last, a human voice filled the silence. It was calm, steady, and carried through every Zorith ship. "We warned you. Do not test us again." With those words, power returned to the Zorith ships. Engines restarted, shields reactivated, weapons lit with energy. But the fleet was broken, their pride shattered. Admiral Korvax sat frozen in his command chair, his claws shaking. He had thought to prove humanity weak. Instead, he had proven them untouchable. The Zorith ships retreated in silence, carrying shame back to their homeworld. When the news reached the council, the chamber erupted. Some envoys demanded punishment for the Zoritha's reckless attack. Others shouted that the humans had shown restraint, sparing ships instead of destroying them. But the greatest noise came from fear. If humans could disable an entire war fleet with unseen power, then what chance did any race have against them? In the markets of alien worlds, fear turned into stories. Children whispered that humans could kill with a thought. Merchants claimed humans had learned to command space itself. Farmers in quiet colonies swore they saw human shadows passing across their skies, watching, waiting. The fear of humanity became the one thing uniting the galaxy. Yet buried under the fear was another truth. The humans had spared their enemies. They had chosen not to kill. For some, that was proof of mercy. For others, it was only proof of arrogance, like a predator letting prey run only to strike later. The council demanded answers, sending messages across every channel. Why did you return? What do you want? What is coming? But the humans did not answer. They moved silently, always forward, always deeper into the heart of council space. The Zorith Dominion tried to hide their defeat, but recordings of the battle leaked everywhere. Every species watched the impossible happen. No fleet, no empire, no weapon had ever shown such power. Humanity had changed in ways no one understood. In the council chamber, the archivist spoke again. His voice was tired, heavy with truth. "Do you not see? They do not fight to prove themselves. They fight to prove us. They wish to know how we will react. And now they know." His words shook many, but still the council could not agree. Some cried for war, believing humanity's power would one day enslave them all. Others begged for peace, believing humanity was the only hope against the unknown enemy they hinted at. In secret, small races began to send messages directly to the humans, hoping for protection, hoping for favor. The galaxy was splitting, alliances breaking before the storm even began. And still the humans remained silent. Only once more did their voice echo across the stars. It came in a short message, simple and final. "Prepare yourselves. The enemy does not wait." No one understood the full meaning, but the warning spread through every world. Something far greater than the humans was out there, and humanity alone had faced it. The first display of power was over, but the greater storm was still to come. And the galaxy, trembling in fear and wonder, could do nothing but wait. The galaxy had seen enough to believe the legends. Humanity was no ghost, no fading myth. They were real, powerful, and far beyond the reach of any fleet or empire. Yet their silence was worse than any weapon. They had shown mercy, they had spoken in riddles, but they had not answered the one question every living mind carried. Where had they been, and what had they faced? The council could not wait any longer. Among them was an ambassador unlike the others. His name was Sale, of the Thryn people, a small race with little power and few allies. Unlike the warlords and generals, Sale had no armies to protect him, no fleets to command. But he had courage, and he had a mind that sought truth above all else. When the council debated sending another envoy, most refused. Too dangerous, they said. Too humiliating, they feared. Yet Sale stood and offered himself. "If humanity will not come to us, then I will go to them. Someone must look into their eyes and hear their truth." Many laughed. A weak Thryn had no place among Titans. But the council, desperate and divided, allowed him to try. And so, in a small ship with only a few companions, Sail traveled to the edge of the human fleet. Black ships towered over him, silent and endless, like walls of night. His vessel was nothing compared to their size, a mere insect beside giants. Yet he did not flee. He opened every channel, speaking words of peace. For a long time, there was nothing. His crew whispered in fear, begging him to turn back. But Sail waited. Finally, a human voice replied, "One ship dares to speak with us. You may enter." A corridor of massive vessels opened before him, the black ships moving with perfect unity. Sail's tiny craft flew into the darkness, surrounded on all sides by human power. They guided him to a great flagship, larger than cities, its hull glowing faintly with strange blue lines that pulsed like veins. Docking clamps held his ship gently, and then the doors opened. Sail walked forward, his legs trembling, yet his eyes steady. Inside he found silence. The halls were vast and empty, lit by soft lights. Human soldiers stood guard, their armor dark, their faces hidden. They did not speak. They only watched. At last, Sail was brought before the human commander. She was tall, her eyes silver like steel, her presence heavier than gravity. She looked at him not with hatred, but with a weight that made him feel small, as if she carried centuries in her gaze. Sail bowed his head. "I come not as an enemy, but as a seeker of truth. The galaxy is afraid. They whisper of war, they whisper of gods, they whisper of demons. But no one knows the truth. Tell me, where were you? What did you fight?" For a moment, the human commander was silent. Then she spoke, her voice calm but filled with hidden fire. "We left because we had no choice. Something stirred beyond this galaxy, something older than stars. It was not enemy fleets or rival empires. It was hunger. A hunger that devours suns, that drains worlds, that bends reality itself. We faced it, because if we did not, it would have followed here and consumed everything." Sail's blood froze. He whispered, "And you fought it for 50,000 years?" The commander nodded. "We fought and we survived, but we did not defeat it. It sleeps now, but it stirs once more. That is why we have returned. Not for conquest, not for revenge, but because your galaxy is not ready. You cannot face what is coming alone." Sail felt his heart race. He thought of the council, of their endless arguments, of their fear and pride. He knew most would not believe this truth. Yet he also knew the humans spoke with the weight of survivors, not liars. He asked, "Why not tell the council? Why hide the truth?" The commander's eyes hardened. "Because they are not ready. They argue like children while the shadow moves closer. If we gave them the truth, they would break. Panic would spread, and the galaxy would destroy itself before the enemy even arrived. We wait until the moment is right. But soon, the choice will be forced." Sail stood in silence, struggling to breathe. The truth was heavier than he imagined. He whispered, "Then why tell me?" The commander looked at him with something almost like sorrow. "Because you asked with courage, not fear. Because you sought knowledge, not power. And because someone must carry the warning when the time comes." Sail lowered his head. He felt both honored and cursed. To know the truth was to carry a burden too great for his small race. Yet he also knew the galaxy needed it. Before he could ask more, the commander ended the meeting. "Go back. Tell your council that humanity returned with purpose. Tell them nothing more, not yet. But when the stars begin to fall, remember our words." Sail was escorted back to his ship. His crew looked at him with wide eyes, desperate for answers, but he gave them none. The flight back through the human fleet was silent, and soon they were free, drifting once more among the stars. When he returned to the council chamber, the leaders demanded to know what he had learned. Sail spoke carefully. "The humans left because they fought a war beyond our galaxy. They returned because that war is not finished. They say the enemy will come. And they say we are not ready. His words brought chaos. Some laughed, calling it a human lie to spread fear and control. Others trembled, remembering the ancient warnings, the broken records that spoke of shadow. The council split again, shouting and raging, unable to agree. But in the silence of his own mind, Sale knew the humans had spoken the truth. He had seen it in their eyes, in the weight of their voice. They had carried war for 50,000 years, and they had not returned without reason. Somewhere beyond the galaxy, the enemy stirred again. And soon, all would see it with their own eyes. The council chamber was no longer a place of reason. After Sale's words, the leaders of countless species argued with greater fury than ever before. Some declared the humans liars, claiming their story of an ancient enemy was nothing more than a trick to frighten the galaxy into submission. Others insisted the truth was clear, that no power could change a fleet of warships into dust without reason, and that only a shadow greater than humanity could explain their desperate return. The arguments turned into threats, threats into promises of war, and promises into secret alliances. The galaxy was breaking apart, not from battle, but from fear. Outside the chambers, whispers spread faster than light. Every colony, every spaceport, every trade hub filled with stories of the enemy. They had no name, so people gave them one. Some called them the Devourers. Others named them the Eternal Hunger. On distant mining worlds, workers swore they had seen stars dim where no natural shadow should fall. On quiet colony stations, travelers whispered that entire fleets had vanished beyond the edge of known space, and that humanity's warning was already too late. The fear was no longer confined to the council. It lived in the hearts of ordinary beings who stared at the night sky and wondered which star would be swallowed next. Sale watched this unfold with growing dread. He had told the truth as the humans had asked, but he had given no details. Yet the galaxy's imagination did the rest. Fear turned into panic, panic into violence. Worlds near the edge of the galaxy began to empty as refugees fled inward, crowding safer systems. Trade collapsed in whole regions, as no one dared travel beyond the core. Pirates grew bold, preying on frightened ships, and even these small raiders were sometimes mistaken for signs of the great enemy. Meanwhile, the Zorith Dominion, still humiliated by their defeat, swore that the humans were lying. Their leaders told their people the so-called enemy was nothing but a story, a way to make fools bow to human power. To prove it, they sent scouts beyond the known edge of the galaxy, into the black where no other dared go. The galaxy waited for their reports. At first there was silence. Then a message came, broken, filled with static. The voice of a Zorith captain screamed through the noise. "It is not a lie. The stars are bleeding. The light is gone. It sees us. And then nothing. No more messages, no more ships." The Zorith Dominion tried to hide the loss, but the truth spread anyway. If it had been human lies before, now it was proof. Something was out there, and it had taken an entire fleet without a trace. Panic rose higher. In the halls of the council, the archivist spoke once more, his voice trembling for the first time. "The records are clear. The humans did not invent this enemy. They found it. Long before their exile, fragments of warnings were scattered in our history. Ancient ruins speak of a shadow that consumes suns. Worlds turned to dust without fire, without war. Always the records end the same way, with silence. Perhaps those who faced it before were destroyed. Perhaps they fled. Only humanity endured. Only they returned." His words filled the chamber with silence, but silence of despair, not peace. For the first time, the leaders felt the weight of what might come. They had always thought their fleets, their weapons, their technology were enough to protect them. But now, the possibility of an enemy that consumed even stars left them powerless. And still, the humans did not act. Their fleets moved through space like watchers, never striking, never conquering, only observing. Their silence became heavier than their power, as though they were waiting for a moment no one else could see. The small races, the ones without great armies or vast empires, began to beg the humans for protection. They sent messages of surrender, oaths of loyalty, anything to escape the fear. But the humans answered none of them. To the galaxy, it felt like abandonment. To Sail, who had heard their truth, it felt like warning. Weeks later, another sign appeared. A cluster of stars near the galactic rim began to dim, one by one. Entire systems lost contact, and the Council sent desperate fleets to investigate. Only fragments of their transmissions returned. The light is gone. Our weapons do nothing. It is like fighting the night itself. We cannot see it, cannot touch it. It is inside our ships. Then silence. No wreckage, no debris, no survivors. The fleets were simply gone. The fear of the enemy became terror. For the first time, the galaxy began to understand why humanity had disappeared for so long. For the first time, they began to believe that even their greatest weapons would not save them. In hidden meetings, some species spoke of surrendering to the humans, believing humanity had mastered something that could protect them. Others whispered of betraying humanity, fearing they would lead the shadow straight into the galaxy's heart. Distrust spread faster than truth, and the Council was powerless to stop it. Sail watched the chaos and wondered if the humans had known this would happen. Perhaps that was why they remained silent, why they had not given the full truth. The fear of the enemy was tearing the galaxy apart before the enemy even arrived. He remembered the human commander's words. If we gave them the truth, they would break. She had been right. The galaxy was breaking already. And still, somewhere in the dark, the enemy waited. The galaxy was drowning in fear. Whole civilizations abandoned their borders, fleeing inward. Trade routes fell silent, colonies vanished without warning, and the council chamber was filled only with arguments and despair. Every leader demanded answers, every soldier wanted weapons that could fight the darkness, but none had them. Only the humans remained calm. Their fleets moved through space like sentinels, black ships drifting in silence, waiting. At last, when the fear was greatest, the humans broke their silence. A single message was broadcast across the entire galaxy, spoken in a voice that carried no anger and no comfort, only truth. It has begun. The message came with images, shared through every channel, every screen, every world. They showed the outer rim, where stars once burned bright. Now those stars were gone, swallowed into a darkness that spread like a wound across the galaxy. Fleets had entered that darkness and had never returned. Stations had sent distress calls and then gone silent forever. It was not war. It was erasure. The enemy had come. For the first time in 50,000 years, humanity spoke without riddles. The human commander appeared before the council, her silver eyes reflecting the weight of endless battles. You wanted to know why we returned. You wanted the truth. Now you will see it. We fought them beyond this galaxy, at the edge of everything you know. We fought them because they would have consumed you long ago. For 50,000 years we held them back. We lost worlds, we lost billions, but we endured. And now they are awake again. The chamber trembled with fear, but the commander continued. You are not ready. Your weapons are dust against them. Your fleets are shadows before their hunger. But if you stand with us, you may yet survive. If you turn against us, if you waste your strength in fear and pride, then the galaxy will end. There will be no council, no empires, no stars. Only silence. For once, the council was silent. No one dared speak against her. No one dared call it a lie. The images of the dying rim burned too clearly in their minds. The commander raised her hand, and suddenly the truth of humanity's power was revealed. Above every major world, human fleets uncloaked, their ships glowing with lines of energy that pulsed with strange rhythm. They were not merely warships. They were something more, shaped by 50,000 years of fighting the impossible. Engines that bent space, weapons that struck without fire, shields that made suns themselves tremble. The humans had returned not as conquerors, but as guardians. And yet their warning was clear: without unity, even guardians could not save them. Then the sky itself changed. At the edge of the galaxy, the darkness spread wider. It was not a fleet, not ships, not anything that could be fought in simple ways. It was a storm of void, a wave that devoured light, twisting reality into silence. From within it came shapes, shifting and endless, creatures that had no form yet carried the weight of nightmares. They did not attack with weapons. They simply consumed, pulling life and energy into their endless hunger. The first true battle began when they reached the Vera system, where humanity had first shown its strength. Human fleets rose like black walls, their energy glowing against the tide of void. For the first time, the galaxy saw what humanity truly was. Their ships struck with weapons that made space itself crack, tearing the enemy into fragments of shadow. Their fleets moved as one, every vessel connected by a unity no alien race could match. Where the enemy consumed, humanity resisted. Where the enemy erased, humanity rebuilt. And in the heart of the storm, the human commander stood, her voice echoing across every channel. This is why we returned. This is why we endured. Alone, we held them. Together, we may defeat them. But the choice is yours. Across the galaxy, fleets scrambled. The proud Zorith, humbled by loss, sent their warriors to join. The HFY, small but brave, followed Sail's voice and took their place beside the humans. Even those who once hated humanity now saw the truth. There was no other choice. The Council, broken and divided for so long, finally united. Armadas moved to human coordinates, and for the first time in history, every race of the galaxy fought as one. The battle raged for days, then weeks. Entire worlds burned, suns dimmed, and fleets vanished. But for every star lost, humanity fought harder, leading the way. They had faced the shadow for 50,000 years. They knew its every trick, its every weakness, its every terrible secret. And now, with the strength of the galaxy at their side, they pushed the enemy back. Sail watched from the council chamber as reports came in. He saw the impossible. Fleets that should have been destroyed holding the line, worlds that should have been consumed shining again. He realized then that humanity's return was not conquest. It was salvation. They had carried the burden alone, and now they had given the galaxy a chance. But the cost was great. Human ships fell by the thousands. Their warriors burned in silence. Their commanders fought without rest. They gave everything, not for power, not for revenge, but for the survival of those who once abandoned them. At the height of the final battle, when the shadow surged one last time, the humans unleashed their greatest weapon. Their flagship, larger than cities, brighter than suns, tore open space itself. A wave of energy blasted through the void, sealing the wound the enemy had created. The shadow screamed without sound, tearing apart, breaking into fragments that dissolved into nothing. The storm was ended. The galaxy was saved. But the flagship was gone. Humanity had paid the price again. When the battle was over, the survivors returned in silence. The council praised their victory, but Sail knew the truth. It was not victory. It was survival. The enemy was not destroyed, only driven back. One day it would rise again. Humanity had shown the way, but the burden now belonged to the galaxy as well. In the end, the human commander's words echoed through every world, etched into every memory. We are humanity. We returned not to rule, but to remind you. The galaxy is worth saving, but only if you stand together. Remember this, for the shadow will return. And with that, humanity became both legend and truth. No longer forgotten, no longer doubted, they stood as the guardians of the galaxy. Not gods, not rulers, but the first and last line against the endless dark.